Hi everyone, my name is Tawny Jenkins, and today I would like to present to you my long report on my goal for someday having a local animal rescue service in Allegheny County. So for our first slide, I would just like to announce that animals matter too. They go through a lot more than what people are aware of. They are abused and neglected, abandoned, and hoarded. And I would just like to point out that they may not have the intelligence that we have, but they do have feelings. Their unconditional love for us is something we should be able to emotionally relate to. The stray epidemic is also larger than what most people understand or even care to know. These animals are domesticated and do not belong in the wild. They are abused, neglected, and abandoned. But in some cases, they are loved to death by being hoarded by someone who cannot care for themselves. There are acts and groups currently out there full of people willing to help, but it is not enough here in Allegheny County. We need people to come together to make an actual animal protection and rescue group so that we can fight against this epidemic every day. So my question for you is, what will it take to give back to the unconditional love of man's best friend? I would like to educate my community on this epidemic, and I would like to definitely make a difference. So we do have some facts that I would like to go over. First off, when it comes to strays, they're full of animals, dogs and cats specifically, that have been domesticated for over 10,000 years. And I would like to cite that as a book titled How Long Have Dogs and Cats Been Domesticated by Leslie Carter. I would also like to add that because of this domestication, they have a lack of instincts. And these instincts kind of serve as a pre-made manual for life. So when they are put out in the wild, they are basically alone, completely clueless. And most of the times, they don't have the intelligence or keen wit that people think they have. They are basically reacting with fear. That's all they know how to do. Fight for their lives. Survival of the fittest. With this epidemic comes overpopulation. This is typically seen more in dogs than in cats, even though when it comes to the numbers, there are currently 3.3 million stray dogs and 3.2 million cats. But after working at an animal hospital, I know for a fact, at least in our local area, there are definitely more stray cats than dogs. And this is because dogs are very similar to people when it comes to pregnancy. They can only stay pregnant during their one trial, whereas female cats can get pregnant the day after they give birth, whereas dogs and people cannot do that. So, and they even are able to create an additional litter while they are pregnant. But it has to be in a small window of time. It would have to be within the same couple hours or day or so. If the female cat were to be impregnated by two different male cats, she could come out with two different DNA strains in her litter. Along with this overpopulation comes danger and disease. I would particularly like to highlight rabies. Rabies is a very large issue that goes on with wild animals, and with this overpopulation, being out in the wild and unvaccinated, these animals can contract this disease. They can, cats specifically can also contract FELV and FIV, which is feline leukemia and AIDS. Dogs can contract Lyme disease, which is debilitating of their joints. So all of this causes an issue, and with this overpopulation, it creates a lot of unwanted guests, and it can create a lot of accidents with people and cars. So the solution to this overpopulation issue is TNR. TNR stands for trap, neuter, and release. And this is very convenient nowadays with the lots of different ways to access low-income spay and neuter clinics. And there's lots of animal welfare groups out there that have low-cost, low-income spay and neuter reimbursements. And then finally, I would like to add on that there are a total, with the dog and cat ratio, a total of 6,000,000 stray dogs and cats, which is actually decreased since its 7.5 million peak in 2011. And that is from the ASPCA website. And they do make a disclaimer that these are rough statistics based off of shelter intakes. Unfortunately, there is no official government group out there that logs actual statistics officially. Moving on, I would like to discuss animal abuse and what to look for. There are over 2,000 cases reported each year, and even thousands more go unreported. And I would like to cite the Statistic Brain and Research Institute for that information. Thank you very much. And additionally, with animal abuse, what to look for. You need to look for specifically no shelter for heat or cold, emaciation, or in other words, lack of care and anorexia, untreated medical conditions, abandonment, and hoarding. Which brings me to our next topic, which is animal hoarding. Commonly associated with OCD, also known as obsessive compulsive disorder, and depression, about 40% of all hoarders hoard animals. About 900 to 2,000 cases are reported each year, and very similar to the animal abuse and cruelty cases, thousands more go unreported. In most cases, the owner lacks self-esteem and has social issues. They feel responsible for the pets that they rescue because they're lonely, and what to look for with these people is you need to look for noticeable signs in the lack of care. AWA, the Animal Welfare Act, was passed August 24th, 1966, and it was determined to ensure the humane treatment of animals used for research, bred for commercial sale, exhibited to the public, and animals that are commercially transported. And its last adjustment of the act was in May of 2010. ASPCA is the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. It is currently the largest animal protection group of North America, founded by Henry Berg, and he established it in 1866. I would also like to add in a professional example. Back in February, I did an interview with a woman that I also work with at one of our local animal hospitals. Her name is Janet Gates, and she currently runs the Bedford County Humane Society. Some key notes that I would like to add in about shelters. All funds mostly come from donation. Most workers are volunteers. And unfortunately, in most cases, they both have to rescue and shelter, which is what I am trying to avoid, what I'm trying to help with by establishing this rescue group. And one of the best quotes I have from that interview was by Cindy. And it is, I was leaving and I simply asked, is there anything else that I have not asked that you guys would like to inform me about? And she simply said, adopt. It's one of the best things you could ever do. I would also like to discuss our local history. Recently, within the past few years, on June 13th, 2014, our local animal shelter rescued 33 dogs from an abandoned home. And soon after, the group became the Lucky 42 because 4 pregnant dogs gave birth, which is what TNR will help with. I would like to do a goal recap. So currently, we have our shelter/animal control, our DNR, which is the Department of Natural Resources, several licensed rescues, several veterinary hospitals, and our local law enforcement. But I would love to add to that list. I would love to have an animal rescue service. So finally, with that being said, the requirements for this must be all people working must be licensed in handling animals, which those vary from state to state. You must be vaccinated for rabies in case you are bitten. You also must have proof of prior education and or experience. This is very important. And we will take volunteers. That'll be for separate tasks, but we will take volunteers. So my final question for you is, will you give back to man's best friend? They sit for you. Will you stand for them? For any further information, you can contact me via email at tawnyjane@gmail.com. And that's a wrap. Get back here.